how could vulnerability go wrong? We talked about who it benefits more, but like how could vulnerability go wrong?
I can start answering. First thing that comes to mind is insecurities, right? If you're vulnerable about your insecurities to people who would rather take advantage of you and make you feel worse about it, then you admitting that you feel bad about yourself in some way opens up the stage for them to say like, oh yeah, you do suck, or like you do struggle a lot with the classes, or you're not smart, or whatever it is. So you could very easily go wrong. But that's when the people you're being vulnerable with do not, I guess, care for your well-being as much as you should care about your well-being, and that's when it's most likely to go wrong.
I'm thinking of two cases. One in which there's almost unwarranted vulnerability without accountability, because that feels like oversharing sometimes. If there isn't, if it's not strategic vulnerability. So if, people are, constantly offloading something that's going on in their lives on people, like, in the example that Ilakkiya gave too. And if there isn't accountability, or there isn't like a direct ask for help in some way, I think that could go wrong, where people might perceive that as, oh, this person, they're choosing to live in those spaces, which might not be true, right? But it could alter how people perceive you for certain. So if you care about that, that might be something to be wary of. And another thing is, if you expect some kind of, stereotypical reaction to your vulnerability, I think that could go wrong. Vulnerability should be expressed for its own sake in a way. So if you're expecting to get away with something just by being vulnerable, or to be given some kind of, easy way out, or a, you know, get out of jail free pass by saying, oh, this is what happened. I think it doesn't stop there. You have to let people react to it the way that they might, and not get mad at them by saying, oh, I was vulnerable with you and I told you what was going on in my life. You should have, you would have reacted well. We can't really control that. So those are the two examples I can think of.
It's actually funny. I also have two different examples, which is one thing is, once you're vulnerable, sometimes the other person might want to be vulnerable too, and they might actually need to be vulnerable. Whereas the moment they know that you're feeling vulnerable, they're like, oh wait, my guard's up. I can't be vulnerable with them now because you know what's happening here. I can't be vulnerable with them, and for most times it usually happens where like older people usually think that with younger people, where I can't be vulnerable with them because you can obviously see what's going on here. They're feeling vulnerable now. You can't dump more information on them now, and sometimes that's why even when things do go wrong in the family, sometimes you tend to hide information from really young people and really old people because you know that you don't know whether they have the ability to be vulnerable and be okay with it. Uh, and so that was like one of the things. The other thing is sometimes when you voice out what is going wrong, you might have actually not. Like, of course, sometimes if it's unknown, you're really scared. So like, obviously, vulnerability helps. But then sometimes you wouldn't have thought it's that bad. But then the moment you see it, I was like, oh shit, it is actually like, this bad. And then you then go into sort of like a panic mode because you were just like vulnerable and you are in a sort of weakened state and you don't know how to handle this and at that time like it could go wrong where you are not in a stage where like if people don't react well, which as Sia said, it shouldn't be done for that thing. But then at that weekend state, if people react badly, you would take it to your heart, and it's. I understand you shouldn't take it to your heart, but like when you're in a weekend state, you won't be able to like think that far.
So I guess I want to catch on to the last point you said of like when you're being vulnerable, you're in a weakened state. And so then that, I feel like that contributes a little bit to the stereotype that to be vulnerable is to be weak in a way. But I guess it's like you're just more exposed, right? And you feel like you're open out there. And I guess that's where the strength comes in, because if you're not strong, you would end up being weak in terms of your ability to be affected. And in that case, you'll have to be strong in knowing that this is your experience. No one can tell you that it's not okay, or you're reacting wrongly, or your opinion is invalid. So it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is we got to be cautious about seeing vulnerability as being a weak thing when it's actually really strong to be able to share your opinion, your emotions, and what you're really feeling with others.
I do want to clarify when I said weak, it's sort of like a rubber band where like you feel weak for that point, but then of course with vulnerability, like once the whole thing happens, you are like way further ahead and you have the strength. But then like when you're feeling vulnerable, that I meant as a state, you felt a bit weak. But then of course, I didn't mean it to be that vulnerability is bad or anything like that. Sia?
Yeah, you both made excellent points about that, which also got me thinking about the mindset that you need to be in before you're vulnerable, is that you've already validated that experience for yourself so that you're, less honest. Like people hate vulnerability because it makes you feel weak, because it makes you feel like you're overexposed. And the way to do vulnerability a little bit more effectively is if you validated that emotion for yourself before you present it to someone else. Because if you're dependent on that other person or their reactions, or unwarranted vulnerability where you're sharing everything to everyone, then that is going to kind of reconfirm the fact that you were already feeling about yourself as, wow, I did something wrong, or this is not great. So if you're not at a comfortable place about what you're sharing, then it might be difficult to get other people to connect with you based on what you're feeling, which is what I think the two of you were also getting at. So great point.
We have used very strong words in answering this question. So, like, if you want some positivity, go back to the previous question again. And we'll go to the next question now.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you'd like to see more videos on the topic, make sure to check out our playlist where we answer more questions. We'll see you next time.